guys, what's up? And today we're going to be talking about the chilling case of Anna Palmer. Anna Palmer was a 10-year-old girl who was found brutally murdered on her front porch in Salt Lake City, Utah on September 10th, 1998. So, Anna Palmer, just a little background on Anna Palmer. Anna Palmer was a 10-year-old girl who loved family, loved her friends, loved her pets, loved to just play with them. She did very well in school. She was a very good girl, always followed the rules, especially her parents' rules. She lived with her mom and dad, Nancy Palmer. So let's just get right into the case. So at 5 p.m. on September 10th, 1998, Anna called her mom and asked if she can go play with some kids in her neighborhood. And her mom said yes, of course. Again, this is not unusual because, again, it was a very safe neighborhood. So kids would go play hide and go seek in the neighborhood, go to each other's house and play games, go to the park together, just kind of hang out outside like any normal 10-year-old kid would do. So her mom allowed it and just said you had to be back before 7 p.m., which is when the time that Nancy Palmer, her mom, would get home. Anna, being the good girl she was, followed her rules, said yes ma'am, hung up the phone, and went over to her neighbor, Loxane, I'm sorry if I get this wrong, Loxane Casanova's house. So she went over there, and she said that they went over to the park and played on the swings. And while they were doing that, they kind of noticed a creepy guy hanging around, and just was a little bit creeped out by it, but not too alarmed. They're like, maybe he's just lost, maybe he's just a new neighbor. They didn't really think much of it. Just let him go, let him walk by, brush it off. So it's getting a little bit late, more towards 7 p.m., and Anna, being the good girl she was like, hey, I have to go home. And her and Loxane started walking towards their house. Now, as they were doing this, they noticed a creepy guy was following them, which set off many alarms in their head, and were like, this isn't right, we don't get a good vibe, good feeling from this guy, he's just really creepy. So, just being, aware of that stranger danger, they went and knocked on their neighbor's house, Amy Johnson, who was a 14-year-old girl that lived in their neighborhood, and she lived in the houses between Anna and Loxane's house. So she was that good middle point. They just went inside. They're like, hey, there's kind of a creepy guy, following us. And she was like, okay, yeah, come in. And they just played with her new little kitten, just waiting for this creepy guy to kind of, go his own way and just not bother them anymore. So it got a little bit more towards 7 p.m. and Anna was like, okay, I have to get home. I don't want my mom to be mad at me. So the girls left, said bye to Amy Johnson, the 14-year-old, and walked outside. When they walked outside, the creepy guy came back and looked straight at Anna, turned around to Loxane and said, you better run as fast as you can back home. Of course, being scared to death as a 10-year-old, Loxane took off and ran back to her house, and when she turned back, she saw nobody. Not Anna, not the creepy guy, not even her neighbor. And 7 p.m. rolled around. Her mom pulled up to the driveway, came home from work. Her mom, Nancy Palmer, came home at work and saw Anna on the porch just laying there, and she it was just very weird, unusual a little bit, but I was like, maybe she's playing with some neighborhood kids, just playing hide and seek or something. She was 10 and think could be possible. But as Nancy Palmer got closer to her daughter, she was in for a rude awakening and saw the horrifying scene of her daughter, Anna Palmer, in a pool of blood. She immediately called 911, tried to stay as calm, but she was so frantic and she tried to resuscitate Anna, but there's just so much blood. And later on, the autopsy would show that Anna was dead before Nancy even got home. Police arrived with there being so much chaos going on. They didn't know where to start, but what they knew they had to start from was the time Anna left her house, so that was 5 p.m., to the time that Nancy Palmer discovered her dead daughter on her front porch. They pieced together evidence. They talked to Loxanne, the neighbor, her friend, also her neighbor. They talked to Amy Johnson, and what Amy Johnson said was this guy just gave off this really creepy vibe. So did Loxanne. And she said that she went out, they looked out the window, make sure the girls were okay, and going back their little way, going back to their house. They saw the creepy guy. She looked away, looked back, and saw that there was nobody there. Not Loxanne, not Anna, and not the creepy dude, which kind of was just a little bit, chilling to her, but she, again, maybe they just ran home or something. So, they also asked the neighbors, since what was so unusual about this crime was A, it happened in broad daylight, B, it happened in a very, very safe neighborhood, and C, it happened near a very busy road. So there had to be somebody who knew this guy, knew what he looked like, could give a really detailed description, or even might have seen what would have happened. But that wasn't the case. There was really no witnesses. The only witness that was really available was Loxanne and Amy, and all they gave us was that he just was very creepy, was about maybe 6 foot, and was maybe on the younger but buffer, and he was kind of more bulky. And that's all they could give him a description, which really could help out the police. Now, what would help out the police was Anna and her body, and that maybe some type of evidence that could help out the police. So when the autopsy came back, they found out that Anna was beaten, sexually assaulted, and raped, and had been stabbed 5 times. She had been stabbed in the throat and on the spinal cord, which could have either caused her death, either the throat or the spinal cord. But since they were both really brutal, they didn't know which one could have done it. And also a major key that came back from this autopsy was Anna luckily fought back. She didn't just let her kill her and just be helpless. She scratched her killer, and as she scratched her killer, some of his skin got inside of her fingernails, which is very, very great news. But the only catch was the killer's DNA had to be in this data system that would link up the DNA. So her killer's DNA had to be in the CODIS database system. And when they went to go in to match the DNA, nothing popped up. Nothing. And since also DNA was a little bit new, they were maybe a little bit more skeptical of this, but it was basically their only shot. Her parents also went on the news, her family on the news, and gave out a $11,000 reward, but again, nothing turned up. So this case quickly became cold. Now, I'm gonna spoil it for y'all, but the killer was Matthew Breck. And we'll give a background on Matthew Breck. So Matthew Breck was a 19-year-old guy who basically had no direction in life. He did not know what he wanted to do. He had a steady job, and he moved down to Utah to live with his brother Tom Breck and his brother's friend Tom Clark. Now, Tom Clark described Breck as just he more rather go drinking and partying than actually doing work, and would like to get in fight with coworkers, and just was very aggressive and gave off this vibe that was just not a good vibe. So Clark's wife was very creeped out by Matthew Breck. She did not like him, not like him staying in the house, was very creeped out by him. And when she heard about the Anna Palmer case, the first thing she did was went to the police and reported Matthew Breck. But they couldn't do anything. He didn't really do much. He didn't set off any alarms that could connect the killer with Anna Palmer's case from Matthew. It just didn't add up. So they couldn't just go over there and just arrest Matthew on the spot or incarcerate him with just someone saying that he did it. But he was actually convicted to a violent felony, which turned into a misdemeanor, which basically just he had very little jail time in a county jail. And what I think made this case really go cold was when he was put into county jail, they did not take any DNA from Matthew Breck. So if they would have taken DNA from Matthew Breck, put it into the database system, this case would have been solved a lot sooner than it should have. So after Matthew got out, he quickly packed his bags and moved up to North Idaho. Of course, if you don't want to be noticed, you definitely go to North Idaho. So he went to North Idaho to get a fresh start and just kind of forget about what happened in Utah. But that shortly lasted because Matthew Breck was then convicted of a burglary in 1999. Once he was convicted, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison and was released in 2001. And of course, at this point, they did not take a sample of his DNA and put it into the database system. So again, he was not convicted of Anna Palmer's murder. And then not long after he got released, though, he was picked up and charged with child molestation. Now, again, child molestation, they definitely had to take DNA at that point. So they took some DNA, put it into the database system, and on 2009, 11 years after Anna Palmer's murder, the Salt Lake detectives had finally gotten the news, and her family finally have gotten the news that they've been hoping for. They had a match in the CODIS database system. They finally had a match. So the detectives found out it was Matthew Breck, went up to North Idaho where he was imprisoned, and incarcerated him and questioned him. Matthew Breck admitted that he lived in the same neighborhood as Anna Palmer did, but just knew nothing about the girl, and they already had his DNA matched up, so I got the guy. He was arrested and brought back to Salt Lake City, Utah, where he had a trial in 2009. So Matthew kind of knew that all evidence was against him and just was like, well, he obviously did it. And he knew that Utah was a death penalty state. And knowing that the citizens of Salt Lake City, Utah would be mad at him for brutally murdering a 10-year-old child who was basically helpless in the situation and couldn't do anything to stop it, he knew that he was going to get the ultimate penalty, and that was death, unless he pleaded guilty. So, obviously, Matthew Breck pleaded guilty and was charged with a first-degree murder and sex abuse of a child. And he was charged in 2011 and was sentenced to life in prison with no parole, which I think is very fair. And so, case closed, case was solved. Now, a lot of people think that Brett got it off easy, which is definitely not the case, okay? Because in prison, the rank system, child predators, molesters, killers are at the very, 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 very bottom of the list. They basically get raped, sexually abused, beaten, murdered, killed, whatever you want to call it, starved in the prison system. So he was not going to have it easy for the rest of his prison life. Trust me on that. So that is it for this case, and thank you for watching.